If you stand at the banks of the Yamuna River in India, you are looking at one of the most recognizable silhouettes in human history. The Taj Mahal, a monument so perfect it feels less like architecture and more like a dream frozen in marble. But if you turn your back on it and walk just 1 mile upstream, you find something else. A fort. And inside that fort, a specific octagonal tower with a small marble balcony. For 8 years, this was the entire world of the man who built the Taj Mahal. He wasn't a visitor. He was a prisoner, locked away not by a foreign invader, but by his own son. This is the story of the Mughals, a family that started as desperate refugees, conquered a continent, and built an empire of unimaginable wealth. They gave the world its most beautiful buildings, but behind the marble and the gold lies a different story. A story of a family curse where every son was a rival, every father a target, and where the very ambition that built the empire would eventually destroy it. To understand how this ends, we have to go back 200 years to a mountain pass in the dead of winter. The year is 1504. A young prince named Babur is on the run. He's a descendant of Genghis Khan, which sounds impressive, but in reality, he's a homeless warlord. He's lost his father's kingdom, he's living like a bandit, and he has nowhere to go. But he has one advantage: gunpowder. Babur had acquired something the warlords of northern India didn't understand: muskets and mortars from the Ottomans and Persians. When he looked south through the Khyber Pass, he didn't just see India, he saw a lifeline. In 1526, Babur faces an Indian army 10 times his size. The Indian sultans have war elephants, massive, terrifying tanks of the ancient world. Babur has 12,000 men, but he does something clever. He ties 800 carts together with rawhide ropes to create a mobile fortress. When the elephants charge, they run into a wall of musket fire. The noise terrifies the beasts. They turn around and trample their own army. In one afternoon, the homeless prince becomes the emperor of India. But here's the irony: Babur hated India. He missed the cool streams and melons of Kabul. He complained about the heat, the dust, and the lack of good trousers. He spent his winnings building Persian gardens just to feel at home. He died only 4 years later, leaving his son, Humayun, an empire that was less a government and more a loose collection of conquered states waiting to rebel. The empire should have collapsed right there, but it didn't, because of a 13-year-old boy named Akbar. Akbar is often called the Great, and for once, history isn't exaggerating. He realized something his grandfather Babur never did. You cannot rule India with just gunpowder. You are a Muslim minority ruling a massive Hindu majority. If you rule by the sword, you will die by the sword. So Akbar rewrote the source code of the empire. Instead of fighting the fierce Rajput warriors of Rajasthan, he married their princesses. And he didn't ask them to convert. He let them practice Hinduism inside the palace. He abolished the tax on non-Muslims. He debated Christians, Jains, and atheists in his court. It was a masterstroke. The Rajputs, once the Mughals' worst enemies, became their most loyal generals. This stability created an economic explosion. By the 1600s, the Mughal Empire wasn't just rich. It controlled 25% of the world's GDP. It was the economic superpower of the planet. European traders, the British, the Dutch, the Portuguese, weren't colonizers yet. They were just customers, standing in line, begging for trading rights. But wealth does something to a dynasty. It makes the stakes of inheritance incredibly high. Akbar's son, Jahangir, inherited a stable machine. He could afford to be an eccentric. He was a naturalist who studied zebras, an addict who drank 20 cups of double-distilled spirit a day, and a ruler who let his brilliant wife, Nur Jahan, run the empire from behind the veil. But the cracks were starting to show. In the Mughal system, there was no rule of primogeniture. The eldest son didn't automatically inherit the throne. Every son had an equal claim. This meant that every time an emperor died, a civil war began. Enter Shah Jahan. We know him as the builder of the Taj Mahal, the man who created the ultimate symbol of love for his wife, Mumtaz Mahal. But before he was a grieving husband, he was a ruthless son. To secure his throne, he rebelled against his father and murdered his brothers, nephews, and cousins. He eliminated the competition. His reign was the peak of Mughal aesthetic. The peacock throne, the red fort, the Taj Mahal. It was an era of blinding luxury. But while he was obsessed with marble perfection, his own family was rotting from the inside. Shah Jahan had 4 sons, and he made a fatal mistake. He picked a favorite. His eldest, Darashikoh, was a philosopher. He was like his great-grandfather Akbar, interested in Hinduism, translating the Upanishads, believing in the unity of religions. Shah Jahan wanted him to be the next emperor. But there was a third son, Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb was different. He didn't drink. He didn't care for poetry. He was a military genius and a devout Orthodox Muslim who despised his brother's heresy. When Shah Jahan fell ill in 1657, the brothers didn't wait for him to die. They went to war. This wasn't a skirmish. It was a full-scale civil war. Darashikoh had the emperor's blessing and the money, but Aurangzeb had the battlefield experience. In a decisive battle, Dara was defeated, betrayed, and dragged through the streets of Delhi in rags before being executed. Aurangzeb didn't stop there. He hunted down his other brothers. He executed one, drove another into exile, and imprisoned the last. And then he turned on his father. Aurangzeb marched into Agra fort. He declared that his father, Shah Jahan, was unfit to rule. He didn't kill him. That would be a sin. Instead, he locked him in that octagonal tower. For 8 years, the man who ruled a quarter of the world was reduced to one room. His jewelry was taken away. He was allowed only his Quran and his daughter to care for him. Legend says Aurangzeb denied him even the smallest view of the outside world, except for one window, the window that looked out onto the Taj Mahal. Shah Jahan died there, staring at the tomb of the wife he loved, imprisoned by the son he feared. Aurangzeb was now the undisputed emperor. He ruled for nearly 50 years. He expanded the empire to its greatest physical size, conquering deep into the south. But he dismantled the machine that Akbar had built. He brought back the religious tax. He destroyed temples. He alienated the Rajputs. He spent his entire life fighting endless wars to crush rebellions that his own policies had created. By the time Aurangzeb died in 1707, the treasury was empty. The army was exhausted. The system of loyalty was broken. The empire was a hollow shell, ready to be cracked open by the next invader. First the Persians, and then the British. The Mughals left behind a landscape of incredible beauty, but their true legacy is a lesson in the fragility of power. They proved that you can conquer a continent with gunpowder, and you can hold it with tolerance. But the one thing you cannot conquer is your own family.